Good morning, everybody. And thank you for joining us today here on Yashwantrao Chavan's birth anniversary, whom we offer our humble greetings. My friend Prachi Pandey and I, Shavi Kadam from SYBA English major, are excited to engage in a thoughtful discussion on one of the most influential autobiographies of the 20th century, Mahatma Gandhi's The Story of My Experiments with Truth, whose copies are available here in the library. It's a profound exploration of the self set against the backdrop of a changing world and a testament to the power of personal transformation. Gandhi's work has not only shaped minds but also influenced the course of world history. Today's discussion holds special significance as we gather on the anniversary of the Dandi March, which began on March 12, 1930. This historic event, where Gandhi and his followers marched 240 miles to produce salt in defiance of the British laws, remains one of the most iconic moments in India's struggle for independence. It epitomizes Gandhi's unwavering commitment to non-violence, self-reliance, and civil disobedience, themes that are central to his autobiography. Today, we'll be exploring his views on Satya, that is truth, and Ahimsa, that is nonviolence, the key figures who influenced his thinking, and how his experiences in various parts of the world, from London to South Africa to India, helped mold him into the leader that we recognize today. We'll also dive into his experiments with Satyagraha and Khadi, which remain enduring symbols of his commitment to self reliance and non violent resistance. Along the way, we'll consider the flaws and contradictions in his personal life, which made him a deeply complex human figure. We'll be alternating topics, and I'll be beginning by setting the stage with the context for this remarkable work. Gandhi's autobiography was written during a crucial period in India's struggle for independence. Written in weekly installments between 1925 to 1929, the autobiography was initially published in his journal Navjivan. Gandhi himself described it as a series of experiments with truth, emphasizing that his life was a continuous process of learning and growth. This serial publication is critical to understanding the book's character. It lends the narrative a sense of immediacy and sincerity, almost as if you are witnessing Gandhi's reflection unfold in real time. He wrote it in Gujarati and then it was translated into English by Mahadev Desai. The autobiography covers his life from early childhood up to 1921, offering insights into his personal evolution and the development of his philosophy. Gandhi's narrative isn't just a personal reflection, it is deeply intertwined with the socio political context of a British ruled India and his efforts to combat injustice. Furthermore, the title, The Story of My Experiments with Truth, highlights a crucial aspect of Gandhi's approach. He did not present himself as a sage or a saint, but as an experimenter, a seeker, constantly testing and refining his beliefs. The context shows us that the book itself is an experiment. It is a way to display his findings and an invitation for others to find their own.
The book gives us major insights about how the major philosophies for which he stood by were rooted in his childhood experiences. For example, he mentions that when he was a kid, he went to watch a play of Raja Harishchandra and that it had impacted him so much that for life he decided to walk the ardent path of truth. And his life speaks to be the evidence of that. Even in his autobiography, he does not hide the parts of himself that might go against his conventional image of a Mahatma, to which we will come in a few minutes. Rather, he accepts them truthfully as a way of self reflection and self improvement. Even his belief in ahimsa was rooted in his childhood, where he understood the true power of ahimsa through his father. When his father forgave him for stealing money and for cigarettes or meat eating, all of which he did under the wrong influence of a friend, this act of forgiveness was for Mahatma Gandhi what he called pure ahimsa and became his object lesson in ahimsa. Further on in his autobiography, though he doesn't specifically define ahimsa, rather, he expands on what true ahimsa means as a multifaceted concept throughout the narrative that goes beyond just physical nonviolence. Mahatma Gandhi viewed ahimsa not merely as abstaining from physical violence, but as a comprehensive principle that encompassed thoughts, words, and actions. He believed that true nonviolence required a fundamental transformation in one's attitude towards others, promoting empathy, compassion, and respect for all living beings. Contrary to the perception that nonviolence is passive and weak, Gandhiji saw it as a courageous and powerful force for social change. He believed that it required inner strength and discipline to practice non-violence in face of opposition and injustice, referring to as the weapon of the strong. He saw ahimsa as a universal principle that transcended boundaries of nationality, religion, and ideology, and believed that each should embrace nonviolence as a guiding principle in their life, establishing peace and harmony in the society.
Gandhi's life was significantly influenced by several key figures, perhaps most notably by Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Gokhale, a senior leader of the Indian National Congress, was a mentor to Gandhi during his early years in India. Gandhi regarded him as his political guru and often sought his guidance on matters of strategy and ethics. Gokhale's emphasis on moderation, constructive work, and dialogue with the British deeply influenced Gandhi's approach to the independence movement. Gokhale's advice to Gandhi, particularly to serve India by going to see the real India, was instrumental in shaping Gandhi's approach upon his return from South Africa. Other key figures in Gandhi's life included his father, Karamchand Gandhi, whose principles of honesty and simplicity greatly shaped his worldview, and his wife, Kasturba, who was a steadfast partner in his experiments with nonviolence and community life. Moreover, the global figures Gandhi encountered, such as the African leaders in South Africa, influenced him as well. It was in South Africa where Gandhi encountered racial discrimination for the first time and where his commitment to ahimsa began to take a more concrete political shape. His experiences there, both in terms of racial struggles and his work with the Indian communities, laid the foundation for his later success with Satyagraha.
In the autobiography, he talks about his experiences while living in various parts of the world. While talking about his life in London, where he went in 1888, he elaborates on how he was plagued with tension between the desire to fit into the English society and being true to his roots in the pursuit of his main purpose for coming to London, that is, to pursue law. In an attempt to fit in the London society, he got himself suit stitched along with an English hat. Furthermore, he joined dance, violin, and elocution classes for a while, but soon realized that all of this was futile for the purpose of his stay in London, that is, studying for his bar council exam. This period also highlights his experiments with vegetarianism. The concept of vegetarianism was very alien to the Western society, and thus practicing it was hard for him, as he was met with strong opposition and critique about his vegetarianism from his peers. Yet he persisted and despite and went on to find a circle of vegetarians, Westerners, who were actively promoting vegetarianism in the West and thus became an integral part of it.
Moving on to his time in South Africa, Gandhi's experiences there were pivotal in shaping his philosophy. Initially, Gandhi went to South Africa as a young lawyer in 1893, unaware of the severity of the racial discrimination that awaited him. The infamous incident of being thrown off a train in Pietermaritzburg simply because he was an Indian was a moment that forced him to confront the brutal realities of racial injustice. It was during this time in South Africa that Gandhi began to experiment with forms of non-violent resistance. He united the Indian community in South Africa through protests and strikes, demonstrating that passive resistance could be a powerful tool against oppression. His creation of the Natal Indian Congress in 1894 was a key step in organizing this community struggle against unfair laws. In South Africa, Gandhi honed his idea of satyagraha, or true force, which was based on non-violent resistance and aimed at appealing to the conscience of the oppressor rather than using violence. This principle would go on to be the backbone of his struggle in India. His time in South Africa made Gandhi realize that his fight for justice was not just about Indian rights, but about human rights in general. It was here where he began to form the philosophical and strategic framework that would later define his leadership in India.
At the end of Satyagraha in South Africa in 1914, on Gokhale's instructions, he and his family decided to move to India. In 1915, when he reached the Bombay port, he was ecstatic to meet Gopal Krishna Gokhale, his very respected mentor. After he came to India, initially he tried practicing his legal profession, but soon realized that he had to serve a bigger purpose, that is, to strive for India's independence. Then came the Champaran Satyagraha, the Kheda Satyagraha, and other freedom struggles for India's freedom movement. But the book is not just a historical note of events of India's independence. Rather, it provides an insight into the mind of a towering figure of India and world history, of what went behind all of these instances, which would require a genuine read of the book, as telling it all is not possible in the given stipulated time. Though, at its core, during his struggle for independence, he used the principle of ahimsa as the foundation to the practice of satyagraha, like he did in South Africa. He believed that non cooperation with unjust laws and institutions, coupled with civil disobedience, can effectively challenge oppression and injustice without resorting to violence. Other characteristics of satyagraha elaborated across the autobiography include self suffering or tapasya, which involves willingly enduring suffering and sacrifices instead of inflicting harm on others, fearlessness, that is abhay, which involves cultivating fearlessness in the face of oppression and adversity, and lastly, genuine and grounded love and compassion for all living beings.
Now, let's talk about one of the most defining aspects of Gandhi's vision for India, Khadi. Gandhi's advocacy for khadi, or hand spun cloth, was far more than a simple economic initiative. It was a powerful symbol of self reliance, national pride, and resistance against the British colonial exploitation. He saw khadi as a means to revitalize India's rural economy, providing employment to millions of impoverished villagers. The act of spinning khadi became a tangible expression of Swadeshi or self rule. Gandhi believed that by boycotting foreign textiles and embracing khadi, Indians could break free from the economic dependence on Britain. He promoted the spinning wheel, or charkha, as a tool for both economic empowerment and spiritual discipline. Beyond its economic and political significance, khadi also represented simplicity and humility, values that were central to Gandhi's philosophy. He saw it as a way to bridge the gap between the urban elite and the rural masses, fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose. His dedication to khadi was a practical demonstration of his commitment to empowering the marginalized and building a self sufficient India. It was a visible, everyday act of resistance, a way for ordinary people to participate in the struggle for independence. Khadi soon became a powerful symbol of the Indian independence movement, and its legacy continues to resonate today.
Roy Pascal, who was a German scholar, wrote about the autobiographical pact in his book, Design and Truth in Autobiography. He says, there is a pact between the reader and the writer. One is committed to tell the truth, and the other is authorized to take the text as truth and not fiction. It is expected that the writer of an autobiography should present a truthful record of his inner and outer life. He should be very honest in presenting the merits and demerits. This autobiography stands to be the best example of this pact. In the autobiography, while shedding light into his inner stream of thought that went behind his work, he truthfully also reflects on his personal life and especially his relationship with his wife, Kasturba Gandhi. During the earlier years of his marriage, he was plagued with jealousy and control towards his wife, considering the then contemporary society. Though later on he does recognize his flaws, corrects them, and respects his wife as his equal. He very truthful accounts all of this in his autobiography, even though these weren't his best traits. This stands as a proof that My Experiments with Truth is a pure autobiography, where the writer, that is here Mahatma Gandhi, himself writes an account highlighting both the merits and demerits of his personality. In conclusion, the story of My Experiments with Truth offers a rare glimpse into the life and mind of Mahatma Gandhi, not as a perfect icon, but a human being constantly striving for self improvement. Throughout the autobiography, he witnesses, we witness the evolution of his core philosophies, truth, ahimsa, and satyagraha, from their origins in his childhood experiences to their powerful application in India's freedom struggle. Gandhiji's legacy extends far beyond India's independence. The principles he cultivated through his experiments with truth continue to inspire movements of social justice and peace worldwide. His autobiography stands not only as a historical document of India's freedom movement, but a timeless guide of personal transformation and ethical living. Thank you.